Breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
9 minutes before 8, let's stay with this breaking story then, Russian intervention in Ukraine, and go straight to Europe and North America. Minister and obviously Conservative MP James Cleverly, who joins me now. Thank you for coming on. Sanctions have not clearly worked, Minister. What's next? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Unfortunately, as you say, we have seen now the invasion that sadly we predicted in our intelligence that we declassified and put into the public domain predicted. And the Prime Minister is hosting a COBRA meeting as we speak to decide how we continue to support the Ukrainian government, the Ukrainian people, alongside our friends and allies. So we will respond with a economic support package, humanitarian package. But of course we will, as the G7 leaders agreed in Liverpool at the tail end of last year when they met, we will respond with an unprecedented punitive set of sanctions.
But they've not worked, Minister. They've not stopped him. Why? If they've not stopped him before, why would they stop him now?
Well, we have, as I say, that is part of our response, and these sanctions will apply.
The definition of madness, Minister, is when you keep doing the same thing and it has no effect. To have these sanctions clearly is madness. It has not stopped him, Mr. Cleverly.
So these sanctions, as agreed by G7 leaders, will put a immediate and huge pressure on the supply of money. We've already seen the ruble collapse in value. That will make the funding of this aggression increasingly difficult to sustain. But as I say, the sanctions response, the coordinated international sanctions response, will only be part of our support, and that support will include, as I say, economic support to Ukraine, humanitarian support to Ukraine, and military support to help the Ukrainians defend themselves against this attack.
Why is London, and indeed the United Kingdom, home to so much Russian money, Minister?
Well, London is, and has been for centuries, one of the world's preeminent, in fact, financial services centre. So London attracts money from all over the world. The vast majority of it, of course, completely legitimate. But actually, I don't think this attack in Ukraine has got anything to do with London's role as a financial services centre. What this is about Vladimir Putin's ego, his foolish attempt to try and write himself into the history books. And at the moment, what this is about is making sure that the Ukrainian people know that they continue to enjoy the support of the United Kingdom and the international community.
How close are we to British military involvement, Mr. Cleverly?
Well, Ukraine is not a NATO member state,
Indeed.
and our commitment to our NATO eastern allies is unwavering, and indeed we've increased our military deployments to our eastern NATO allies. As I say, Ukraine is not a NATO member state. It would be wrong to treat them as if they were, but we do continue to support them, as I say, financially, in humanitarian terms, but also with equipment to help them defend themselves against this Russian attack.
As we're talking about funds, it was revealed that the Conservative Party has received almost £2 million in donations from Russia, what are called Russian-linked figures. What sort of smell does that have to you?
Well, those donations are completely legitimate. They are from British nationals of Russian birth, and we have donations from people born outside the UK to all political parties in the UK. That is not in itself. There's nothing wrong with that.
Why would an oligarch give a lot of money to the Conservative Party, do you imagine, Minister? Why won't he or she do that?
Well, I imagine some of the people who have fled the oppressive regime of Vladimir Putin wanted to support a political party that at the time was trying to prevent Jeremy Corbyn from being Prime Minister, who'd been an apologist for the Putin regime, who had refused to accept the reality of the poisoning of British nationals by Russian agents only a few years ago. There are lots of reasons why people, whether they be Russian British dual nationals or people from any other part of the world originally, or those born and brought up in the UK, would want to support a political party that stood firm on the rule of law, stood firm
Would you give the money back?
Holding Putin to account. What? There's no reason to. The money was completely legitimate. And if you're
Do you
suggesting
enjoy
there's something wrong with
benefiting
that,
from Russian money? Does the party enjoy benefiting? Not you personally. Does the Conservative Party enjoy benefiting?
Nick, if
from
you're
Russia?
making a specific accusation, make the specific accusation, because otherwise the implication is that somehow there's an illegitimacy to all Russians.
I just wonder how it smells.
We wouldn't. No,
I just
Nick.
wonder
Let me
how it
finish.
smells
Let
to
me
my
finish.
listeners.
No, let me finish.
Presumably some of
Because we wouldn't-
some
we
of
wouldn't-
Putin's
we
buddies
wouldn't
fund the
accept
Conservative
that.
Party, Mr.
We
Cleverly.
wouldn't accept that. We wouldn't accept that if you were making that kind of blanket accusation about any
I'm
other.
not making an accusation, Mr. Cleverly. I'm just pointing out the facts.
Well, if you're not making an accusation, what are we talking about then?
I'm
Nick?
pointing out the facts that I presume some of Putin's buddies have sent cheques or delivered funds to the Conservative Party that you and your colleagues have chosen not to refund, and I just think that smells a bit iffy, but you don't.
Well, they're certainly not Putin's buddies,
How do you
Nick.
know?
And if you're because we do our due diligence. And again,
So
I mean, this
none
is
of
no,
Mr.
no,
Putin's,
this is
none of Mr.
Nick,
Putin's
if you've
friends or
got-
associates have been given any funds to the Conservative Party. We can say that categorically,
Nick,
because then we can
Nick,
move on,
if you-
Mr. Cleverly.
No, I tell you, if you're making an accusation, make the accusation, because this whole kind of,
I'm pointing out facts, Mr. Cleverly.
well, the facts are these donations are entirely legitimate,
And none from
registered,
Mr. Putin's
registered with the Electoral Commission. Certainly not from friends of Vladimir Putin. Indeed,
Okay.
there are plenty of people who valued the firm, decisive action that the British government took, the Conservative government took, in response to that Russian attack on UK soil, which killed British people in Salisbury.
Let's move to other matters. There is concern, indeed I've had a call here from someone, Tom in Hertfordshire. Why is Russia Today still allowed to broadcast on TV networks? Minister.
Well, because we think it is not the role of government to shut down broadcasters. That is a very slippery slope. We have Ofcom, we have a regulator, and we've asked that regulator to look at their output. It's the right thing to do to get an independent regulator to look at the output of a broadcaster, because, I mean, you're a professional broadcaster. I am sure you would not want to live in a regime where the government could decide who could and could not broadcast on the airwaves.
Are you disappointed Ofcom aren't moving a bit more rapidly with this, Minister?
Well, my understanding is the Secretary of State only called upon them formally yesterday.
This is the news business, Mr. Cleverly. We make bulletins on the hour, every hour.
Yeah.
That Ofcom
Well,
comes.
as I
I
say-
appreciate you're not in Ofcom. I must stress this here,
Yeah.
and you're actually not allowed effectively to get. But it does
Spot
seem
on.
strange in a business that does bulletins every hour that Ofcom can't make a decision, does it not? You might not want to go there, but I'll just ask you.
Well, Nick, as you say, we don't, and it's right that we don't dictate to Ofcom what it does. The whole point of an independent regulator is that it is independent. But of course, Russia Today has been spouting complete nonsense and disinformation.
Well, I would say dangerous
Ofcom's
nonsense,
regulator.
actually, Minister. I would say dangerous
Well, I
nonsense.
struggle
indeed.
to disagree with you on that.
Okay. Lastly, you are, of course, just to remind my listeners, Europe Minister. How would you characterise the response from some European leaders, particularly perhaps President Macron? Appear one day he's Napoleon, the next day he's Neville Chamberlain. How's the European leaders' response been in your view?
Well, actually, later on today, I'm going to be having a call with my American, French, German, and Italian counterparts. The coordination across Europe, including from France, from Germany, from Italy, and others, has been fantastic. And we continue to work very, very closely together in our response to this Russian attack. Genuinely, the coordination between North Atlantic and European allies has been exceptional. I couldn't criticise it.
Okay, lastly, Mr. Cleverly, you're a military bloke. How do you feel for the lads and women out there now in Estonia and Poland?
Well, look, I'm incredibly proud of our British Armed Forces. They are hugely professional and hugely valued. I get feedback from our friends in NATO and wider afield, and they really value the military support that we provide. They do an incredibly important job keeping us safe, and of course, in this instance, making it very clear that we stand shoulder to shoulder with our NATO allies in Eastern Europe.
Grateful for your time. Very busy man today, I'm sure. Europe and North American Minister James Cleverly appearing here on LBC, where the time is 8 o'clock. Let's get the latest news headlines. Thomas Watts.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, Russia has started an invasion of Ukraine with explosive